Hello and welcome to National Focus. I am Octavia Prosper. In the headlines, Prime Minister Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit says the current site for construction of the international airport is the most suitable one. Dominica continues to play a key role for global efforts for climate change, and Dominica joins the rest of the world in observing AIDS Day on December 1, 2020. Details of the headline stories and more when we return.
The hurricane season is less than a month away. Find out today what types of hazards that could happen where you live. Hurricanes can cause many hazards, including flooding due to heavy rainfall, large waves along the coast, strong winds, landslides, and falling rocks. Determine your risk and be prepared for any eventuality. A message from the Government Information Service.
Welcome back. The government of Dominica has welcomed the decision by U.S. President-elect Joe Biden to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. The U.S. President-elect Joe Biden has recently announced the nomination of former U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry as a special envoy on the climate crisis. Prime Minister Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit believes Mr. John Kerry has the experience and skills to work with the global community on such matters. He said on his Anupali program last night, this announcement has given a renewed hope of possible success in these global efforts to fight the scourge of climate change.
The government of Dominica views the nomination of John Kerry, who signed the Paris Climate Accord on behalf of the U.S. in 2016, as a firm commitment of President-elect Joe Biden to make climate change a top priority for his presidency. Indeed, Mr. Kerry has the experience and skills to work with the global community on such matters. These developments have given us renewed hope of possible success in this global effort to fight the scourge of climate change. We want to congratulate the U.S. President-elect for his stated commitment and the significant appointment of former Secretary of State Kerry, who himself was a U.S. presidential candidate a few cycles ago.
Prime Minister Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit spoke on developments in reference to climate change, which took place over the past week. He says is significant for the global efforts to stem the debilitating efforts of climate change. Prime Minister Skerrit says Dominica, along with other small developing states in the Caribbean and other regions of the world, has played a leading role in the global efforts to tackle the issue of climate change.
We have led the way in building awareness about the emergency and in advocating real commitment and real action from the global community in that regard. For these global efforts to be effective, all nations, big and small, must be at the table and must play their part in dealing with this global challenge. When the United States pulled out of Paris Climate Accord in 2016, it was a significant blow to those efforts, especially because of the fact that the U.S., one of the leading economies in the world, is one of the leading emitters of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. And its involvement will be critical for serious and effective action.
Prime Minister Skerrit says Dominica looks forward to working closely with the United States of America and other nations on this issue that speaks to Dominica's economic well-being and survival.
We know too well here in Dominica that the global warming that is changing our climate is already having dire consequences. And there is, may I say, this fierce urgency for all nations to act with determination and resolve.
Dominica joins the rest of the world in observing World AIDS Day on December 1, 2020. The theme for this year is Solidarity, a Shared Responsibility. Coordinator for Dominica's HIV/AIDS Response Unit and health psychologist Mr. Lester Guy has called on citizens to be more community-oriented. He says it is important for patients to have a good support system.
Over the past 5 years, half a decade, what we've attempted to do on a regional and international level is that to get the community more involved. The mandate is no longer the Ministry of Health, or just the individual. There are multiple factors involved in it. So we're asking people to get involved. I've always said, and I've said it so many times that, you know, I hope it's not tiring, people do a lot better with their quality of life when they have very good support. And it may not be support from a family member, it might be from an organization, a civil service organization, an NGO. You get better support and you do better. Somebody calls you on the phone and says, how are you doing? Did you take your medication this morning? You know?
Mr. Guy says medication in Dominica for HIV/AIDS patients are free and encourage individuals to take advantage of this opportunity.
In 2020, moving on to 2030, we should have no one dying of AIDS-related death. We have medication. It's free to you as a client. It's free to you as a patient. So what we are attempting to do is to get you into care. If we don't see you, we can't help you. Come to us. Let us assist you. Let us be your support system. Let's be the backbone that sees you through this thing.
Mr. Guy encouraged individuals to visit the Roseau Health Center or the National HIV/AIDS Office to get tested.
We have testing tomorrow. Hopefully it doesn't rain again. We're going to have our little table outside. We have people who we had to call to get tested because they've been, you know, asking us for a while. But we'll take a few walk-ins again. One of the difficulties and the challenges that we've had as it relates to shipping stuff, we don't have as much kits as we would like to. So we still have to scale back. But again, as I said, you know, people can come get tested, put their names, and we'll call them as soon as possible. We'll have them tested. So I'm going to have some of our volunteers from our civil service organizations and our NGOs and our social clubs with us tomorrow. So we'll be doing information. So, you know, encourage people to pass and get the information.
Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit, continues to emphasize that the current site for the construction of the international airport is the most suitable. Government has begun the process of allocating land in the Wesley area for the construction of the international airport. Prime Minister Skerrit says his government has put in place a team of local experts to review all studies that were on the table for the international airport.
To review all of the studies on the airport. So they looked at the Stanley and planning, the planning and Stanley report, and they looked at the Sir Alexander Gibbs report. Two main documents on international airport studies in Dominica. And the membership of that committee included Mr. Vincent Filbert, who was then Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism. We had Mr. Lucien Blackmore, an engineer, Mr. Wendell Lawrence, and Mr. Wendell Lawrence is a very interesting person in that he was the manager of the UWP airport project program. So he was the chairman, he was the manager of that particular group, overseeing all matters relating to the 1998 airport. And then we have Mr. Leonard Royer, who is a pilot. We had Mr. Edward Lambert, who was the National Authorizing Officer. We had Mr. Don Corriott, who was the manager of the then Melville Airport.
Prime Minister Skerrit says government contracted some of the best firms to select the best possible site for the airport.
We contacted and contracted a U.S. firm, Lundrum & Brown, which is a reputable firm dealing with international airports. They were involved in the Caribbean, they were involved in Asia, United States of America. And I said to them, because I wanted to approach this team from removing all political considerations, because this is an airport. This would be the biggest infrastructural project taking place in Dominica. And because this thing has been so political in the past, with the UWP having a site, the Freedom Party having a site, I wanted to ensure that we got the best independent advice. And I said to the gentleman, you are the experts, here's Dominica. Tell me where we should build an airport based on your studies. And we did a lot of this investigation quietly, because I did not want to raise people's hopes unnecessarily on this airport, because we've been talking about airport for over 50, 60 years.
The Juvenile Justice Reform Project, Jjrp, which is a joint initiative between the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, and United States Agency for International Development, USAID, has launched its advocacy project in OECS member states. Minister for Youth Development and Empowerment, Youth at Risk, Gender Affairs, Senior Security, and Dominicans with Disabilities, Honorable Dr. Addis King, says the administration of juvenile justice and associated matters have posed various challenges to governments and institutions around the world. Honorable Dr. Addis King says substance abuse, juvenile crime, and violence is a matter of serious concern here in Dominica, with such crimes as theft and being armed with an offensive weapon.
Substance abuse remains up till now the highest on the list of offenses attended to at juvenile courts in Dominica. It is a fact that many children are disadvantaged at the early stages of their development, which predisposes them to the committal of criminal activities.
Reducing crime and violence among the youth in the Caribbean is a high priority for citizens and governments in the region. This remains the priority of the Juvenile Justice Reform Project, Jjrp. The slow and negative impacts of economic shocks have left gaps that result in juvenile crime. Honorable Dr. Addis King says that due to a lack of role models, children reject and lack acceptable norms and values to the detriment of themselves.
I am mindful that while certain family members are doing their best to keep their children on the straight and narrow path, there are those in society who take advantage of children by virtue of their age to engage in criminal activities like drug trafficking. I strongly appeal to adults to desist from using our children for their benefit in enriching themselves.
Minister King says the activities organized during the Jjrp campaign represents a call for greater vigilance on the part of everyone, and citizens should be vanguards for children. The Ministry of Blue and Green Economy, Agriculture and National Food Security, through the Emergency Agricultural Livelihoods and Climate Resilience Project, has contracted the Auto Trade Marine Unit to procure outboard motor engines for the fisheries component of the World Bank Emergency Agricultural Livelihoods and Climate Resilience Project. Fisheries Officer Mr. Norman Norris says over 100 fishermen will receive engines.
The fisheries component involved boats and engines for fishers. We have looked at the engines first, and we have had 2 sessions here, and we will be supporting fishers under the restoration of fisheries systems over 100 engines.
To date, over 200 persons have expressed interest in the boat engines, and the approval process is ongoing.
We had over 200 expression of interest, and the approval process is ongoing. We've had 3 approval meetings to date, and over 50 beneficiaries have been approved, and we hope we can have another approval meeting next week and continue until we cover that.
He says it is the intention to complete the training sessions as soon as possible to begin the distribution of the engines.
The session we're looking at doing again because of COVID, we're looking at doing maybe 10 or 12 persons per session until we cover. So this was session number 2, and we hope we can complete that as soon as possible. And we have some of the engines coming in next week, and hopefully by Christmas or early January, we'll have everything and be able to deliver to the beneficiaries.
Mr. Norris says he is pleased to announce that all the beneficiaries are already boat owners.
I'm particularly very happy because the beneficiaries, the 100 beneficiaries we have, they already have their boats. So as soon as they get the engines, they will be able to go to sea and contribute to the economy, and contribute, of course, to increasing fish and obviously reducing the food import bill. And this is really what we're looking at.
Mr. Norris says the fishermen will also be required to sign a contract which prohibits the sale of the engines.
There's also a contract that you have to sign, and some of the information in that contract is you cannot sell the engine. This is a major factor. And we have to make sure that we tell that to you, so you cannot say you didn't know about that or we didn't tell you about that. So there's a contract that you have to sign. You have to agree to all of the terms and conditions, and then you sign the contract, and then we give you a date and a time when you can come to pick up the engine.
The Emergency Agricultural Livelihoods and Climate Resilience Project will continue to assist with the development of fishermen.
The Emergency Livelihood Climate Resilience Project is partnering with fishers to continue that. They will continue training in various aspects of their own growth and development. The boat phase, which we hope will come in next year, once we complete all of the engines, we can go into the construction of the boats and then the second phase of that project.
Meantime, Manager for Marine and Industrial Department at Auto Trade Limited, Mr. Nigel Macpherson, says the aim of the training is to educate the fishermen of the warranty and maintenance of the engines.
Since we are service providers, we also want to ensure that the end users of any product that we sell are educated into the product. So we do not want our fisher folks or fishermen just to have an engine at the back of their boat, not knowing what the maintenance involves, what the warranty involves, things they need to be checked on. We just want to ensure that when they're out here, that they can catch fish, they can come back to land safely, and they can go back again. So we want to ensure that our end users or fishers are well educated into the product that we sell.
He says the fishermen will be granted a 1-year warranty on the boat engines.
Under the regulations of our supplier, that the warranty is extended to 6 months. But with the World Bank, we have come into an agreement where we have extended an additional 6 months to the fishermen.
One of the beneficiaries, Mr. Gilbertson Peter, says it is important to adhere to the lessons learned during the training to assist with the longevity of the boat engines.
It is very, very important that we follow the information that was given at the lecture, and if we do, this machine can last for a very long time, because if we were to follow what was said, we can see a difference compared to other machines we saw before and the way in which they perform. And what we do realize is that a lot of them perform poorly because of poor maintenance.
Mr. Peter described the engines as a blessing from God.
Well, I'm very, very grateful, because it is like not just a hole, but it is like a drum removed from your back. In that, with this engine, you are not asked to give nothing back in return in terms of repayment. So from then on, you can move on, which can assist you in helping your family to a better life, yourself to a better life. So indeed, it is a blessing from God.
Another beneficiary, Mr. Harris Brumont, who has been fishing for over 30 years, expressed his thanks to government.
I want to thank, first of all, the World Bank in collaboration with the government of Dominica for this wonderful gesture. Okay? Seeing that we were battered by the rage of Maria, and it took some time, but it's not too late. And I'm thankful for that.
Minister for Sports, Culture and Community Development, Honorable Rosalind Paul, says government continues to invest in a number of projects which will contribute to sports development in Dominica. Minister Paul says sports is very important for the holistic development of Dominica's youth. Minister Paul says government continues to rehabilitate work on the Windsor Park Sports Stadium, which was dealt a hard blow after Hurricane Maria.
We continue to do work. Hurricane Maria affected the stadium, and we continue to implement the various projects that can bring back the stadium to its maximum operation, and to, once they are ready for us for international games. In fact, we would have had international games this year had it not been for COVID-19. But we continue to invest in this stadium right here through 3 different projects. The scoreboard is here, and all the footwork necessary to install it has been complete. And the scoreboard cost us over $600,000, plus other works to be done. So actual purchase cost us over $600,000.
The minister says work will also be done on the multi-purpose hard court at the forefront of the stadium, and the Massac hard court is also almost complete.
We also have the hard courts at the front of the stadium, the multi-purpose hard courts, and all of the equipment for installation is here, and all we are waiting for is for the contractor to continue works. We also have the Massac hard court. When you're passing right next to the road in Massac, you will see a nice facility there. This is going to be the first indoor basketball and volleyball court with covering in Dominica, and it will serve us well nationally for national games, but also for OECS games as well. We hope to complete that within the next few weeks.
Work is also ongoing on the Hood-Fordale playing field. This work was made possible through the Basic Needs Trust Fund. Minister Paul says works continue on several playing fields across Dominica.
We also have, through the Basic Needs Trust Fund, works ongoing at the Woodford playing field, and also there are works carried. Contracts have been signed for the Mount Prosper basketball court as part of a wider project. We have works ongoing and works to continue at the Geneva playing field.
You're watching National Focus. More when we return. Welcome back. Executive Director of the National Telecoms Regulatory Commission, Craig Nesty, says the Commission continues to fulfill its corporate responsibilities. Mr. Nesty informed that there is a special fund called the Universal Service Fund, which the NTRC manages, and this fund is used to provide telecommunication services to areas where those services may not be economically viable. Most times, this occurs in rural communities where the providers may not extend their network. Some of the communities which have benefited under this program are Bells, Concord, among others.
Recently, post-Hurricane Maria, the NTRC has partnered with FRIDA. It's a grant agency. We won a grant to provide community Wi-Fi to a community in Benz, Ansaldat and Ansley May. And they were very grateful for that initiative because prior to that, the only way they could access the internet was through the high rates of mobile data. On the heels of that, we've also engaged a USF, a Universal Service Fund project, to bring community Wi-Fi to Penville, right? And NTRC has also partnered with the Internet Society of Dominica to bring community Wi-Fi to Grand 4.
Mr. Nesty says NTRC also has another project in the Kalinago territory to provide full Wi-Fi coverage to that part of the island.
There's another project going on right now with the Kalinago territory, where we're working very close with John Samosa from the Kalinago territory and his team, and we're planning to do full coverage of the Kalinago territory through Wi-Fi connectivity. And the backhaul internet for that is already provided for by the Universal Service Fund. So the NTRC basically has done a number of initiatives to try and make the internet more accessible, affordable, and available to the Dominican people.
Schools are also benefiting from NTRC's donations. Mr. Nesty says through the partnership with the Universal Service Fund, NTRC was able to bring technology to schools.
We've brought laptops and computers to the primary school in Soufriere. We introduced the microbit microcontroller to the Pioneer Primary School, and we did the summer programs with the it was just a summer coding workshop in Corleone, where we taught young students how to code and program in that community. And we will be launching other initiatives like that coming up, because we recognize that in order for the internet to be more useful, it has to be more relevant to the people of Dominica. So we need to be able to create more and produce more content online to make the internet more relevant for us, to drive more people towards a more digital economy.
Acting Chief of Police, Mr. Lincoln Corbett, says the Commonwealth of Dominica over the years have enjoyed a low crime rate. He says the lowest crime rate was recorded in 2019, where 870 major crimes as compared to 926 for the year 2018. The police commissioners spoke of some of the crimes that are under major concern to the force.
The crimes that are of major concern to us in Dominica are murder, sexual offenses, burglaries, robberies, and taking conveyance. So far, for the year, this year, 2020, we have recorded 13 murders. I must report that from these 13 murders, we have solved 9 of those cases. Of concern to us, however, is the use of firearms in committing those crimes. And we noticed that most of the murders that were committed in 2020 and before that involve the use of firearms. We will continue to review our crime strategies in an effort to reduce the number of crimes on the island.
The Acting Chief of Police says the government of Dominica on July 1, 2018 moved to increase the positions of the police force from 501 to 600. Mr. Corbett says recruitment is currently ongoing.
The government of Dominica is committed to filling the vacancies in the force, and the process of recruitment is ongoing. And to date, we have processed a number of individuals who have applied. It is expected that a new cohort of officers, as indicated by the minister, will soon commence, of 50 officers, 50 people, inclusive of women. We are actually looking at training not less than 15 women. And again, we urge and we encourage those persons who are interested in joining the police force to do so. The process is ongoing, and we really need officers or young people to join the force.
Mr. Corbett says he is pleased for the recent promotions of officers.
Recently, we also saw promotion of some 23 officers in the force. I think that should have been, that may be history. I never saw it before in my 30+ years in the police force. And we saw from the ranks of corporal all the way up to assistant chief of police. Again, as I indicated, we'll see more of that very soon, as long as the Commission agrees with what we sent before them.
The 2020 Atlantic hurricane season has broken record and was named the busiest season in history. The season will draw to an end today, November 30, 2020. A prediction was interpreted in August for an extremely active season with 25 named storms, 11 hurricanes, and 6 major hurricanes. The first systems, Offa and Buffer, formed May 16th and 27th, outside of the official season, with the last system, Iota, dissipating on November 18, 2020. The season saw 30 named storms with top winds of 39 miles per hour, with 13 forming into hurricanes with top winds of 74 miles per hour or greater, and 6 major hurricanes with 111 miles per hour or greater.
Record-breaking busiest Atlantic hurricane season draws to an end today, November 30th, 2020. The prediction in August was for an extremely active season with 25 named storms, 11 hurricanes, and 6 major hurricanes predicted. The first systems, Alpha and Buffer, formed May 16th and 27th respectively, outside of the June 1st official start of the season, with the last system, Iota, dissipating on November 18th. The season saw 30 named storms, 13 hurricanes, and 6 major hurricanes, which was more than predicted, with the list of names going into the Greek alphabet by mid-September, as all the 21 names on the list, which ended with Wilfred, were used up. This season surpassed the 2005 season, which produced 28 named storms, but 2005 and 2020 both produced 31 tropical depressions. An average season would produce 12 named storms, 6 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. However, thankfully, Dominica was not directly impacted this season. A tropical storm warning was issued for Dominica on 20th July at 2 p.m. to 8 a.m. on July 29th for potential tropical cyclone number 9, which later went on to become Hurricane Isaias north of Haiti. A number of flood watches and warnings were issued for the island during the season. The season officially ends today, November 30th, but it is still possible for additional storms to develop as long as conditions are favorable, and we can also be affected by trough systems and frontal boundaries, resulting in rough seas and excess rainfall, causing flooding, landslides, and falling rocks. The public is therefore advised to remain vigilant and to monitor the weather updates issued by the Dominica Meteorological Service.
Acting Senior Met Officer Mr. Marshall Alexander says the season officially ends today, November 30. However, the Acting Senior Met Officer has confirmed that it is still possible for additional storms to develop as long as conditions are favorable, and we can also be affected by trough systems and frontal boundaries, resulting in rough seas and excess rainfall causing flooding, landslides, and falling rocks. The public is therefore advised to remain vigilant and to monitor the weather updates issued by the Dominica Meteorological Service. The late Felix Henderson was laid to rest on Saturday in his native community of Granby, following a funeral at the People's Pentecostal Church. Senior Minister Honorable Reginald Austri was among cabinet members present at the funeral. Mr. Felix Henderson will be remembered by the media fraternity in Dominica and by many for his contribution to his efforts at preserving Dominica's Creole language. On behalf of the management and staff of the Government Information Service, we extend our deepest sympathies to the family, friends, and colleagues of the late Felix Henderson. The Creole icon died on November 10 after battle with illness. And now your weather update. A surface trough will continue to affect the area during the early afternoon, resulting in a few scattered showers, mainly across the southern section of the island. A reduction in shower activity is expected thereafter, as a high-pressure system will begin to rebuild across the area by late afternoon. Moderate sea conditions are expected during the next 24 hours, with waves peaking to 7 feet. Small craft operators and sea bathers should exercise caution. And that's all for this edition of National Focus. Be sure to follow GIS Dominica on Facebook, YouTube, as well as on Twitter. You can also drop us an email at gis@dominica.gov.dm. From all of us here on the GIS News Production team, I am Octavia Prosper. Thanks for watching.